in this post-apocalyptic world, and is a lonely survivor living on a farm with her dog. She often visits a rundown town for supplies, and she covers her whole body to protect it from radiation, and carries an oxygen tank to avoid breathing contaminated air. Anne's farm is in the valley, which isn't contaminated, so she has to walk a long way to town, but it's worth it to stay safe. After every supply run, she washes her body thoroughly. At night, her dog sleeps in the same bed to help her with loneliness, and is often bored, and her routine includes checking on the farm animals, the fences, and the traps she sets in the forest. Her dog helps her find rabbits by following their scent. One day, Anne is shocked to find an abandoned vehicle on the road. As she gets closer to investigate, her dog barks, warning her of a presence nearby. They hide in tall grass and watch a man in a protective suit pick up his wagon and continue his journey. Shocked to see another survivor, Anne follows him in secret. The man uses a device to confirm the area is radiation-free and removes his helmet to breathe the fresh air, and watches him scream in excitement as he takes off his suit. Then she comes out of hiding to find him washing up under a waterfall, and rushes to tell him to get out. But because she is carrying her hunting gun, the man John thinks she is threatening him and points his own gun at her. He shoots into the air and demands to know where the others are, and puts her hands up and warns him the water is contaminated. A terrified John runs back to his wagon and uses his device to confirm he's been bathing in radiation. He starts to vomit, then rushes to get a syringe with medicine and desperately asks Anne to inject him. His screaming makes her wary, so he throws his gun away, swears he won't hurt her, and asks her to inject him, and gives him the injection and offers to take him to her house. John explains that he will need medicine once a day and asks her to burn his clothes. He covers his body before following her. He also asks her to burn his body if he dies at the farm, and washes John with clean water, making sure to give him a good scrub. Then she has to drag him to the bed because he can barely walk. In the morning, Anne returns to the wagon and picks up John's things, including pictures of him with a woman. As days pass, Anne continues to take care of John, checking his temperature, feeding him good food, and giving him injections. At night, she can't sleep because she can hear his bed shaking as his body trembles from fever. She spends long hours putting wet napkins on his body to calm him down. One night, she accidentally falls asleep by John's side, and when she wakes up, she prays for his recovery. She also goes to the chapel to play the organ as part of her prayers. Eventually, John recovers and can leave the bed, though Anne still has to help him walk. Anne explains that her dad told her family to stay on the farm because the valley would protect them. Her family left one day to look for other survivors and never came back. John can't understand why the valley isn't contaminated, and the lack of explanation annoys him, and distracts him with a hug. The next morning, John notices that Anne is taking care of the plants manually, so he checks the house's library and reads some texts about farming. He approaches Anne, although he is too weak to help her yet. She tells him she can't use the tractor because it ran out of gas and the pumps don't have electricity. John tells her how to work the pumps manually, so she rushes to the gas station and is very excited to finally get gas. At the house, John watches her from afar using a gun scope. Moments later, Anne is happily taking care of the crops with the tractor, and the dog excitedly chases after it. That night during dinner, John watches and prays before eating. He tells her that he survived the incident because he was working in a government bunker as a researcher. He eventually left the bunker because he felt trapped and wanted a real life again, and wonders if he was looking for his wife and mentions the pictures. But John says the woman wasn't his wife. When it's time for bed, Anne keeps her door open on purpose. John notices her bare legs, but still goes to his own room. The next day, Anne goes fishing on the pond and takes the opportunity to go for a swim, often exchanging looks with John while he watches her. Afterward, they cook the fish together, and Anne explains that the pond comes from the same pocket of water as the well, which is supposedly underground. The pond will freeze in winter, and Anne explains how difficult it was to survive last time because her house generator broke. When they go back, John inspects the generator and confirms that the engine is fried, and blames herself for connecting the DVD. But John tells her the generator is very old and would have broken down anyway, and then makes a joke about school projects with potatoes, which gives John an idea. They go to the waterfall, and seeing its size, John confirms he can build a water wheel that could power the generator. He will need a lot of wood to do so, and wants to dismantle the chapel. and is against the idea and explains that her father built the chapel so he could preach every Sunday. She believes the valley isn't contaminated because the chapel has been protecting it. John points out that her father or God could have left the chapel for them to start again, and still refuses. That night, the dog keeps barking at the door for some reason. The next morning, Anne goes through her usual chores, and John does maintenance on the machines. Afterward, he goes to a market by the road to get supplies. By the time Anne joins him, she discovers he's incredibly drunk. John throws boxes around, saying he has learned about her taste by noticing what she's emptied and what she's left behind. That night, Anne tries helping him get into bed, and John snaps, pushing her against the wall as he says that he doesn't need help all the time. Terrified, Anne runs to her room. The following day, John tries to pick up the eggs from the farm, but finds nothing and apologizes to Anne for his behavior. Sometime later, Anne goes to the chapel to play the organ and notices someone watching her from afar. But the person is gone when she comes out. Assuming it was John, she goes to the farm to tell him it's okay to listen to her play. However, John says he didn't go anywhere near the chapel. In the evening, they have a lovely dinner with fine wine and dance together. They end up kissing, but before it can escalate, John breaks the kiss and thanks Anne for dinner before going to his bedroom. Minutes later, John checks on Anne in her room, and she immediately takes off her dress. However, John makes her cover up again, upset and wonders what she did wrong, and John assures her he's attracted to her. But getting naughty would change things, and he thinks they need some time. The following morning, Anne tells John that he can have the chapel, but John turns it down because he doesn't want to upset her again. Sometime later, while Anne is checking her traps, her dog suddenly runs up the hill while barking. She follows and is shocked to find a man named Caleb, who swears he means no harm and only wants some water, and takes Caleb to the farm and has to stop John from shooting him. John then uses his device on Caleb to check for radiation, while Caleb admits that he stole the eggs. He was afraid to ask for them, because people aren't always welcoming. Caleb survived the incident because he's a mine worker and was underground when it happened. His co-workers went out to look for their families, but never came back. He plans to keep traveling south and asks the duo if he can stay the night, promising to leave in the morning. The device picks up some radiation on Caleb, who admits he's weak and has already vomited a couple of times. John agrees to let him stay a few days so he can recover. Caleb starts setting up a tent, but Anne convinces John to let him stay in the house. During lunch, Caleb prays with Anne and laughs because he can't believe he's made it this far. He tells some stories of his travels, and John does the same, mentioning a teenage boy who stole food from his wagon. The boy had vomited all over his supplies and was so sick from radiation that he begged John to end things. However, John refused to kill him and left him on the side of the road to die. In return, Caleb shares that his co-workers didn't actually leave him. One of the men tried to leave the mines, but the others wouldn't let him for fear that the radiation would get in when opening the door. This caused the man to snap and kill most of the crew before he collapsed dead too, and offers him her sympathies, and John is hurt because she didn't do the same with him. After Anne gives Caleb a tour of the house, John scolds her for being so friendly with a stranger, and complains back, explaining how hard it was to deal with her family's disappearance and having to survive on her own. John ends up admitting he did kill the boy and theorizes he was Anne's brother, so he apologizes and cries, and tells him it's okay. Sometime later, John and Caleb go hunting together. They discuss some radio transmissions that talked of a community in the south. Caleb's goal is to find it, but John thinks there's nobody left there. At that moment, a turkey appears nearby, and Caleb says that whoever kills it first gets Anne. John gets angry and Caleb laughs, swearing he's just joking. While they chase the turkey, John tells Caleb about his water wheel idea and why he can't build it. In the end, John shoots the turkey first. That night, they have the turkey for dinner, and Caleb brings up the water wheel, making everyone uncomfortable. He tries to think of other ways to get materials, but they don't have the tools to cut trees, and the other non-contaminated buildings in the area aren't made of wood. Caleb points out that the chapel is their only choice to rebuild, which forces Anne into agreeing to do it. The next day, the trio works together to dismantle the church. While they work, Caleb and Anne keep on exchanging glances. For the next few days, they build the wheel together under John's guidance, but he gets annoyed when he notices that Caleb's and Anne's glances are evolving into actual flirting. The group also drives down the road to pick up all the cables from the utility poles. Later, a very sad, and visits the remnants of the church, and Caleb tries to comfort her by inviting her to go on a walk together. He tells her that his father tried to be a preacher, but ended up choosing women and alcohol. Caleb didn't go to church for many years, but his faith never left him. He thinks faith is what protects the valley and why he and are chosen to rebuild, and is happy to finally have someone who understands since John isn't a believer. When they return to the farm, John watches them with clear jealousy. That night, John tells and that she should get together with Caleb because he understands that she needs to explore instead of waiting for him, and cries, not understanding why John is suddenly rejecting her. John keeps insisting it's fine and calls it to be white people together. Days continue to pass with everyone working on the wheel while and keeps wondering what to do with the men in her life. To install the first half of the wheel, Caleb puts on the suit and risks getting into the contaminated water, which allows them to make great advances. That night, they celebrate their work with wine, music, and cards. They end up jumping into the pond and playing a game to find a bottle. However, John feels like a third wheel because the others keep sharing looks and teaming up. On their way back to the farm, John breaks down and tells and that he loves her, but she doesn't say anything in return. At the house, and gets in bed with John, but he's so drunk that he instantly falls deeply asleep. Tired of waiting for John and dealing with his drinking problem, and goes to Caleb, and they get naughty in the bathroom. The next morning during breakfast, Caleb gently pets Anne's head in front of John, and she feels so uncomfortable that she leaves the table. The men agree to continue working without her, but they still discuss how special she is. Caleb wonders if John wishes he'd never shown up, but John denies it, saying he'll complete the wheel thanks to Caleb. This makes Caleb laugh. He says that he doesn't believe John's words, and that he can tell he's jealous. He even admits he may stay on the farm instead of searching for the community. In the afternoon, Caleb puts on the suit again to help John finish the project. They carefully install the last parts, and soon the wheel is working perfectly. After a short celebration, Caleb starts climbing back and slips on the wet rocks. Luckily, John holds the rope tightly, keeping him from falling. Then, Caleb safely makes his way to the top only to slip again. John grabs the rope at the last second, but doesn't move. He exchanges a serious look with Caleb as he wonders what to do. Sometime later, John returns to the farm and tries to apologize for last night, but John interrupts her to explain that Caleb left to look for the community in the south, and refuses to believe it and goes looking for him, but she can't find him. John finishes all the connections, and the farm finally has electricity. When Anne returns, she discovers that John has moved the organ to the barn. She sits down to play, and John is happy to enjoy her music. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for amazing movie recaps.